Welcome to Deep Dive by House of Undine, the wellness podcast where peace meets power and depth drives everything. Interviews, insights, meditations, and more. Let's dive in. Crystal Bowls Brainwaves and the Science of Sound Baths. No water required. Hello and welcome back. Today we are talking all about sound baths, which, despite the name, a sound bath does not actually involve a bath, at least not the way that you are thinking. There's no water, there's no towels, no soap, and it's really all about sound, vibration, and typically it takes place in a room where you are lying on some kind of yoga mat, or maybe you are doing a personal session, so you're lying on what's typically a massage table, and you are listening to the powerful frequencies in, hopefully, if you're with me, crystal tones bowls. If you've never experienced one before, I feel like the marketing with sound baths makes them seem very mysterious, so I would like to dispel some of those rumors for you. Typically for me, I use sound baths as a tool, so they are something I use for calm, for relaxation, if I'm having trouble sleeping, if I need to use a creative session. It's a tool for many different things, and I like to use them to meet you where you're at. So it's not necessarily this mysterious thing where you're coming in and I'm like sending you off to the 4D or whatever. It really is for relaxation and time for themselves and to connect with themselves. And most people leave my sound baths saying things like, I feel really calm. That felt like a reset. I actually was able to sleep for a little bit. But today we are going to talk about what crystal tone sound baths actually are, why quartz is used in the bowls, what happens in your brain during a session, why sound baths are becoming this big popular trend, and why this practice can really help you. And it can help you with everything from stress to sleep to creativity to emotional release. So obviously I really love sound baths, and I just want to give more information because I feel like there really isn't a lot of good information that kind of bridges the gap between science and spirituality and how it can actually be useful to you in your everyday life. So what is a crystal tone sound bath? Sound baths I utilize crystal tone singing bowls, and these bowls are made from 99.9% quartz crystal. And quartz is actually one of the most widely used minerals in modern technology, and it is actually used in everyday items. We use them in watches, we use them in smartphones, radios, medical devices, computers, and apparently the reason is something called piezo electricity. I have no idea what that really is, but that's what I found. And quartz crystals have the ability to convert electrical energy back into vibration. And because of that property, quartz vibrates at a very stable and predictable frequency. And that's why quartz is used in quartz watches. It helps to keep time accurately because the quartz crystal vibrates thousands of times per second, and it acts like a microscopic metronome. So quartz is literally used to measure time through vibration. So crystal singing bowls kind of utilize that same principle. Most bowls in general are used to heat the quartz sand to very high temperatures, and then they form it into large bowls. Crystal tones specifically, the way they make it is like a proprietary situation. But I think for the most part, it is an element of heating the quartz and forming it into the bowls. And then the crystal tones in particular are also infused with different alchemies and properties, which makes them really interesting. And the way that they are formed is very thin, so they create a very deep resonant sound. But when we play them with a mallet, and typically you'll see me, I'll have like a silicone or a suede mallet, and they produce these long sustained tones with pure frequencies and layered harmonic vibrations. And like I was saying, there are all different kinds of sound baths, and many practitioners use many different kinds of bowls. But the bowls that I use are crystal tones, and those tones are highly resonant. They are the only bowls that actually really work for me for the most part. I do like Tibetan bowls. I go to people and have sound baths with them, and I do like them. But for me, the bowls that work the most are crystal tones. They're the only bowls that can really get me into a theta wave state, which I'll explain a little bit later, and really allow me to deeply rest, access my parasympathetic, and really restore. So for me, they are like the premium, and they really are a premium luxury bowl. They're a little more expensive, which is why typically a crystal tone sound bath is more expensive, but you're really paying for the quality and paying for a really amazing session that you can actually feel the difference. So these tones, they linger, they overlap, and they create a really immersive sound environment rather than just like a traditional melody. And what's happening to your brain during a sound bath? So the crystal tones are emitting these frequencies, and those frequencies are interacting with your brain waves, and they are effectively calming them down. So typically our brain functions in about 5 different wave states, at least for the general information. Starting at the top, the highest wave or the fastest wave is a gamma wave, and that's high level learning, thinking, moments of insight, kind of higher consciousness. And then beta wave is where we typically are functioning. So that's our normal waking consciousness, that's our thinking, problem solving, our decision making. Then we come down into our alpha wave, which is more of a relaxed state of awareness and kind of a calm focus. And then we go down into our theta wave. That's where we can achieve deep meditation, creativity, imagination, emotional processing. That's where we start to really access our parasympathetic and really rest and restore and heal. And then we can access our delta waves, and that's the slowest brain waves typically associated with sleep, which if you have been to a sound bath, you will find that a lot of people do fall asleep. So a lot of people enter the delta wave. And sound baths really help guide you from that beta, busy thinking state into a theta wave state where your mind can become quieter and more relaxed. That's why people often feel like they've taken a nap or meditated very deeply after a session. And they can also influence your nervous system. So when your body's able to get into that theta wave state, or the alpha, but really theta, your body is able to access its parasympathetic, which is its rest and recovery. And our body is normally functioning in one of 2 situations. So it's either in its sympathetic, which is its fight or flight, or its parasympathetic. And modern life, how we live daily, typically keeps us in that sympathetic, that fight or flight mode, because, we have deadlines. We got to answer phones, we got to answer emails, we have all these notifications, constant stimulation, we have tons of things to do. And so having something like a sound bath where you're creating an immersive environment that blocks out everything else can really help signal to your body that it's safe to relax. And also those frequencies, and this is kind of where the bath term comes in and how I specifically play the sound bath. I am playing those frequencies in a way that you feel very held by the frequencies, and it feels like you are bathing in them because you are so surrounded in that immersive experience. So it is my job to hold you in that immersive experience so that you are able to really rest and relax, and you're able to just kind of let go. And what happens is you can start to kind of breathe slower, you reduce stress, you have an improved mood. There's all kinds of wonderful benefits from sound baths, but the typical one that you will honestly find the first time you do it is your body will feel relaxed and your mind will feel more relaxed. So in simple terms, you're really shifting your body out of survival mode into that rest and restore. And like I said earlier, sound baths are really amazing because they really are a tool that will meet you where you are at emotionally. So they can be used for all different sorts of things. It just really depends on the day and depends on what you're dealing with. For some people, sound baths are a way to relieve stress. Like if you've been holding tension in your body, the sound bath can help the nervous system release that tension. For others, sound bath may help with sleep because when the brain moves into those slower wave states, it can be easier to transition into deep rest later. And I get that feedback all the time that people get a way better sleep after they come to my sound baths. And then there are the people who are grieving. You're processing difficult emotions. Sound baths can really create a space for you to feel safe enough to kind of have that emotional release. Because a lot of times when we are going through periods of grief, our body's really tense, we're in survival mode, and it's really hard to feel our feelings. We're kind of just trying to push through them and not feel them at all. And a sound bath can really help make you feel safe enough and supported enough that you're in an environment where you can just let yourself feel what you need to feel. And then there are other people who can use sound baths as a tool for creativity, which at this point in my life is what I use them for all the time. Because theta brainwaves are strongly associated with imagination and insight, so artists, writers, creators often use meditation or sound practices before creating. For me, I love to have them as kind of like a meeting with myself where I can kind of allow my mind to play and think about things and allow things to come in and different ideas. So that's really cool. And I love that for myself at this moment. But again, I've had all different sorts of experiences with sound baths, and you will too, because every sound bath for you will be different. I've never had a single sound bath that was the same for me, and I've never had a sound bath that was the same for somebody else. And there's also, and I will not deny, there is a spiritual aspect to sound baths, but I think that is up to the person. If you are someone who comes in and you are interested in that and you lean into that, you can definitely access those things. But if that's not for you and if you're not interested in it, it's not going to happen for you. So I don't want that to scare anybody from doing a sound bath. It's definitely not solely spiritual, although there is a spiritual aspect to it. And it has been used in spiritual practices for thousands of years with bells, chanting, gongs, all sorts of things. So you can use sound baths for a multitude of reasons, but the thing I focus on most is as a tool to help you meet you where you're at, as a wellness tool, as something that you can turn to when you need a little bit of help. And like many wellness practices, sound baths have really become a trend. So you see a lot of different kinds of sound baths now. You see floating sound baths, rooftop sound baths, big social event sound baths, DJ event sound baths. I mean, there are all kinds of sound baths. You can pretty much link a sound bath to almost anything at this point. And to be fair, a lot of these experiences are really fun and experience, and it's cool, but they're not always designed for original purpose of a sound bath or for the best experience of a sound bath and what I would consider it to be its most useful state. This is going to be maybe a controversial hot take, but I think floating sound baths are a really great example of this. They look incredible, and I have done a floating sound bath. I have not only participated in one, but I have facilitated them. And it's not to say I'll never do it again, because I do think experiences are awesome and people love an experience and it's fun. But they're kind of really unnecessary, typically, especially with ones that are on like floating mattresses. By the time you get on the mattress, you basically can't feel the water anyways. A lot of the times in those experiences, you kind of get like, unless you actually have facilitators in the water, making sure that you are circulating around. In the one that I did, we got stuck at the back and they kind of just left us there. So we weren't really moving, but you can't even really tell because you're on a mattress. So you're so far off of the water. And to be fair, if you're not doing it with something like a mattress, if you're just using like a floaty, it can be really uncomfortable. You kind of get a little bit of seasickness and you can't really relax. You can't even really enjoy the sound bath because you can get cold. There's, your body's going in and out of the water. You don't really want to let yourself relax because, you don't want to fall asleep while you're swimming. That would be dangerous. So I consider floating sound baths to be an example of something that it's a cool experience. If you haven't done it, you should. And just because it's fun and it's a fun thing to do with your friends, and it could be at a really cool location. Like if I was out somewhere like in the tropics or something and they were doing a sound, like I've seen these sound baths by waterfalls floating, and I'm like, I would 100% do that. Like that looks awesome, but not necessary. The best sound bath experience to me, it is indoors. It's in an enclosed space. So you have really good acoustics. Typically, it's with a more intimate size, and it can be done virtually and in person. And I think both of those things have different pros and different cons, because when you do something, so I'm not going to say in person versus virtual, one is necessarily better than the other. I think they both serve a purpose. So I would say that in-person sound baths are awesome because you're in the immersive experience. You get to leave your house, you get to be with other people, you're in community, but also by being in that community, you also have to accept that other people around you might snore, they might move around, you might be distracted. Whereas a virtual sound bath, you're kind of giving up that you're next to somebody, but you're also able to relax more because you're not worried about anybody else around you. So I will say that. And that kind of leads me into talking about virtual sound baths, because traditionally I think a lot of people, and I've had this experience too, well, there are a lot of good sound baths out there. There are a lot of bad ones. And I've had a lot of people come to me that have had really bad experiences, like people who just bang a bunch of different instruments, who they're playing too many instruments where like nobody can calm down. So your mind is constantly bouncing between different sounds, or they're kind of playing it in a way that isn't relaxing to you. Also, their instruments sometimes aren't good. A lot of people order those frosted quartz bowls off of Amazon, which is I mean, nothing against Amazon, but those bowls typically, I mean, I had one off of Amazon at the very beginning of all this and it didn't even play correctly. And now I know, but I didn't then. I never used it for anybody. That was like way before I ever got into doing anything publicly. But I think virtual has been the same way. I have participated in virtual sound baths that are amazing, and I have signed up for virtual sound baths that are terrible. I think with virtual, you have to be really careful at the equipment you are using because the frequencies are so low that it's hard for most microphones to pick it up. That's why if you go to a large sound bath event and the people who are running the sound bath don't have the correct equipment, you won't be able to hear it and you won't really get anything out of it because typical microphones can't pick it up. So you do need specific equipment, but if you have the right equipment, virtual sound baths can be amazing. I do virtual sound baths now and I have a specific microphone that I use. I also do sound checks before the virtual sound bath to make sure that you can hear them properly. And I've had people have wonderful experiences because they get to be in their house. They're tuned in. It's immersive. You're in your own space. You're in your own bed and you can just roll over right after and go to sleep or do whatever you need to do. And you're not worried about anybody around you. You're not worried about yourself snoring. You're not worried about somebody else snoring. And they work pretty much just the same. You can still get the same. I mean, obviously the frequencies are coming through. So your body's coming down from that. And yeah, I would say they both have different purposes, but they're both equally as useful if done in the correct way. So highly recommend both versions, but I have actually done a lot of my sound baths with other people via virtual and had really wonderful experiences, and they're some of my favorite. So as a closing, I would say that sound baths aren't these like mystical, mysterious, magical things. They can be, and there's a magic to them. And I could do a bunch of other episodes on how cool they are and how the crystals have really shown me that, you know, what they represent actually does matter. It's been very interesting to me just because I'm not necessarily like a crystals guru. I really don't know a lot about crystals. I found sound bowls. I'm a very calming energy and I'm good at playing them and I utilize them as a tool to create these spaces. But I will never tell you that I really know anything about crystals or like I keep a bunch of crystals in my house. That's not really me. So I've been kind of learning as I go. And I am a skeptic at heart. So it's been very interesting to me to see how certain people, I'll be more inclined to play certain bowls that really resonate with them. And you find out after and at certain events that happens too. So it's very interesting. And there's a lot of magic to sound baths, but there's also a lot of science and there's a lot of practicality to them. So I think they're useful for everybody. I would love for you to try them no matter where you're at, whether you're in a state of transformation, maybe you're grieving, sad, heartbreak, or you're excited, happy, joyful, or you're stressed, or you're looking for a creative space. So many different options. It's a tool, and it's a tool that I would love for you to try with me. So again, I'm still doing some in-person events in Richmond, but if you are not in the Richmond area, please sign up for a virtual with me. I would absolutely love to see you, and I can't wait to talk to you all. I will talk to you next week. Have such a wonderful week. Love you. Bye. Thanks for diving deep with us. If you like this episode, share it, rate it, and come back next week for more. This is Deep Dive by House of Undine, where peace meets power. The content presented in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to constitute professional advice of any kind, including but not limited to medical, legal, financial, psychological, or other professional services. Nothing discussed should be interpreted as medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or prevention of any disease, nor as a substitute for advice from a licensed physician, healthcare provider, or other qualified professional. You should not disregard or delay seeking medical or other professional advice because of something you have heard on this podcast. Always consult a licensed physician, healthcare provider, or other qualified professional regarding your specific circumstances before making decisions related to your health, treatment, medication, supplements, finances, legal matters, or lifestyle. If you believe you are experiencing a medical or other emergency, contact your physician or the appropriate emergency services immediately.